Hello and welcome. I guess the title of this piece is a bit of a brain twister. I'm sure that curiosity led you here to try to figure out, what's an atheist doing calling for the second coming of Christ? Oh, gee. It gets worse, too, because I also claim to be a true Christian. So, now that you're thoroughly baffled, it might be time to start sorting it out. And throughout this presentation, I will rely on the Socratic principle. Now, the Socratic principle, that relates to the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. And millions of people have heard Socrates, and I guess the best known thing about this man was that he was forced to commit suicide. And because he was kind of disruptive in Athens. So, the elders of the city-state of the Athens of those days picked up the tab for a hemlock highball and sent Mr. Socrates on his way to wherever we go on the other side of that black curtain. Of course, we just go on to another existence. But anyway, now that means, and now I guess if they had a law, I don't know if they had a law, aggravated pain in the assism. But anyway, that's the way he was kind of viewed. Because, see, if he got into a conversation with somebody and they used a word that was kind of ambiguous, that it wasn't clear, kind of vague, didn't know what it meant, why, Socrates would challenge him and say, "What do you mean by that?" Like, God. I thought I was going to have a real treat one day when I heard or saw that the atheist Richard Dawkins was going to debate George Perry, the Cardinal of Australia. And I thought, hey, that ought to be something to see. Well, ho-hum, I shut it off after about 15 minutes. They were just throwing softballs at each other. But the thing I recognized, the thing that I really found wrong with it was they didn't define what they mean. What does it mean to be an atheist? See, because if you don't make yourself clear, then you give people the opportunity to apply their own interpretation of what you mean. And that leads to an awful lot of misunderstandings. So let me tell you what I mean by an atheist. I don't believe anything that organized religion tells me, unless there's some evidence that it might be true. And should you wonder how I became an atheist, I became an atheist while attending a Roman Catholic parochial school. Because I was getting something. I got a good education. Ooh, use that. Women learn how to read and write and play with numbers. But I was getting something else. And it was like one of those things where you sense it. You don't know what's wrong, but something just isn't right. Well, of course, I was a young fellow then, 5th, 6th grade, and I guess I never heard the word indoctrination, but that's what it was. So they're filling my head with a whole lot of stuff that just doesn't make any sense. But now, the church, is probably, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, and based on 60 years of reading history, it is my opinion that the Roman Catholic Church is one of the world's leading sponsors of institutional terrorism. And one of the things I like to look up every morning when I get on the internet is Ripley's Believe It or Not. I wonder if the church has a version of it. And if it does, it would be Believe It or Else. Well, anyway, I don't believe it. However, it doesn't mean that I don't have beliefs. I have some very, very strong beliefs. I have a lot of gratitude and a lot of peace because, and I don't have any idea where I came from. But that, I'll get to tell you about that if the conversation goes that way, or the monologue goes that way. And what do I mean by God? Is it a crazy old man in the sky with a personality problem? And if, like George Carlin said, doesn't know how to handle money? No. What I've come to believe is in the great spirit of the universe. All things everywhere. And in all things everywhere. The only singularity. Because there's no place where the spirit cannot be found. And the Father, now this part of Christ, has got a Father. Well, the Father in me, which is my source of strength and wisdom, is my connection with that great spirit. And that great spirit is good, true, beautiful, peaceful, orderly, and harmonious. Things get pretty violent out there, don't, like if somebody, I think it was Carlin who said, the people build a house right next to a volcano, and they wonder how come they've got lava coming through the living room. Yeah, so, you have to exercise a little bit of judgment, and sometimes things happen, like a train wreck or a plane crash. But anyway, that's not the end of it, because we are spiritual beings in a human condition. So what do I mean by becoming Christ? And how does it happen? That's an interesting story. And when does it happen? See, the Bible talks about you know not when your hour will come. Doesn't mean Jesus is going to come back and scoop you up off the earth and take you off someplace. No. You make a mess, you clean it up. So, anyway, as to being a true Christian, I understand the Christ message. And you know what that is? To be one. To become one. Now, whenever I present this argument to people, and they always, whether it sticks with them or not, I don't know, but they always get it. And I put it this way, be Christ? You mean be Jesus? No. Because actually, there never was a Jesus. I know that's really gonna... I know there's people who, I would suggest that people have a problem with what I'm saying, just go someplace else. because you're not going to have a good time here. I promise you that. Anyway, the Christ's message, to be one, well, put it another way. Suppose you wanted me to be your best friend. Now, would you want me to really be your best friend or just act like it? You know, people have always remarked, I mean, a lot of people have remarked, that these so-called Christians don't really act very Christian-like, you know, because they don't understand. I talk to these people who have been brought up in, real old-time religion. And don't forget, back in the old-time religion, they were hanging niggers back then, remember? So, it wasn't always bad. And by the way, nigger is not it's really not a pejorative word. It arises from the word, and you can look it up in the dictionary, niggardly. And niggardly means cheap and stingy. And the name was applied, the N-word was applied to blacks who were freed from slavery and just didn't want to work like slaves anymore. If you wanted them to do something, you had to pay them. Anyway, let's not go too far afield with that one. Anyway, and I also believe in saying what you mean. One of the stupidest things I ever hear is dog poo. Now, is there anyone out there with an IQ more than a head of lettuce who doesn't know that we're talking about shit? Dog shit? Why not just say dog shit and get it over with? But anyway, it does sound very Christian, does it? No. Well, okay. Now, every day is Christmas. Somewhere. Because Christ is born in someone's heart. And it always follows the final judgment. Now, you think final judgment, well, that's that painting, that awful painting, that Michelangelo plastered over the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel back in 15-something? No, the final judgment is a private matter. It's personal. And being a recovering alcoholic, I've been free from that affliction for almost 34 years now. Excuse me. But others of my colleagues and drug addicts have a way of describing it. They call it hitting bottom. And sometimes people have to hit several bottoms. But this is the bottom of all bottoms. This is it. This is when you have the revolver in your ear and your finger on the trigger, and you're trying to decide to whether to pull the trigger or not. Now, you'd have to admit that, the people who do pull the trigger or hang themselves or overdose on pills or whatever it is, they have a pretty final judgment, don't they? Well, by the law of logical inference, if one side of an issue is so, then possibly both sides, the opposite side of the issue is also true. So, it's like, if suicide is a final judgment, or an accidental overdose, is a final judgment, because, I mean, that's a one-way trip, then maybe taking the pistol out of your mouth, maybe choosing to live another day, and that leads to another day, and another day when you say, God help me, that's your final judgment. And well, I mean, Christ is born in your heart. And you know, but that's not, no, don't go skipping down the lane where, you know, God admit, because, oh, baby, this Christ fella, the Father, you know, why, he's all dusty and dirty and weak, because he's been under all of this garbage, all these resentments and hostilities and guilt and remorse and all those dead cats you've been filling that gunny sack on your back with. And it gets too heavy after a while. And you want to put it down once and for all. Well then, but, hey, you know, you look at the problem, and it's not out there, it's in here, you know, and up here, it's doomsday machine. If you're an addict or an alcoholic, you got a doomsday machine up here. It's trying to kill you and make it look like an accident. Really. But, so you just say, well, just help me out. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Tell me where to go, and I'm on my way. So, let's begin with straighten out a few other things, like, you know, our existence here on earth is a never-ending struggle between good and evil. But if the Great Spirit is all there is, and that Great Spirit is good, then where does evil come from? Well, see, the trouble with that is that people think that good and evil are opposites. They're not. They're complements of one another, but some sick people, you know, really sick people, think they're always looking for differences instead of similarities. Instead of cooperation, they're looking for discord and separation. So, how about the different relationship between men and women? Aren't they opposite sex? Opposite sexes? Excuse me. Now, what makes you feel better? Thinking of men and women as opposite sexes or complementary sexes, where each brings their own talent and uniqueness to a relationship, and they recognize each other's uniqueness, and each contributes his and her spiritual essence to the relationship. And you know, I don't know if you know this, but maybe start looking for it, you know, the people who get married, you know, married couples that really love each other as they age start to resemble one another. Have you ever seen that? Oh, it is so... It's better than television. Anyway. Truth is good. Okay? And the reason for it is that truth is always true. And it's simple. Like Mr. Occam with the razor said, it's simpler the truer. So it's if something that's really, really simple, it's really, really true. Now, reality is evil. You see? Well, and the reason is because it relies on appearances. What something looks like or what it sounds like. You know, like weapons of mass destruction and portable chemical laboratories and the Gulf of Tonkin and all this stuff that isn't real. So reality appearances have the power to deceive. You know. So that's why it pays to be skeptical, and that's why I tell you, don't believe a damn word I tell you, unless it touches your heart. Then that's different, which is what I'm hoping to do in this context. Anyway, reality is not bad. It's like a confidence game. You know, somebody wants to sell you a bridge back east or shorefront property in New Mexico. Well, don't fall for it. That's why the gospel, the beatitude, resist not evil. Because the master, Joshua of Capernaum, by the way, well, he said, you know, he knew that all this out here is make-believe. It is. It's whatever you think it is. Because here, you know, where we are, this world, do you have any idea where we are? Or what this is all about? I'll tell you. It's purgatory. Now, it's a place of purging. Because purgatory is a little bit of heaven, a little bit of hell, and a whole lot of in between. And our purpose down here is to purge the lower values, the animal nature, the old Adam, and move toward a godliness, a divinity, a grace, virtue. And we can do that one thought at a time, one step at a time. But there are rules. And getting down to the point where I claim to be a true Christian is because I understand the Christ message. And that's what I'm going to share with you now. Now, these people who, they're supposedly faithful, fundamental Christians, talk to them, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't really understand what you're telling them. And so because they've been brainwashed and programmed from early childhood, and that is child abuse. Scaring the hell out of kids for no reason. Believe it or else. Anyway, now the Christ is three persons in one. And that's what people have a whole lot of difficulty trying to figure out. How can you be three people in one? Well, let's picture a cute little girl. She's maybe 5 years old. Blonde hair, blue eyes, big blue eyes. Well, if she has parents, well, she's a daughter. Right? Now, then she starts school. And now she's going to school, she's a student. Now she's a daughter and a student. And then she becomes a young woman, a teenager, and maybe she gets a job in a drugstore or babysitting. So now she's a worker. She didn't stop being a daughter. She's still a student. But she babysits. So she's also an employee, a worker. And then going on down the line, well, she picks out a career. It might be a professional career, so she becomes a professional. A doctor or a lawyer. And then she meets the right guy, and they get married. And she's a spouse. She hasn't stopped being a daughter. She might still work. She might even still be going to school. And then they have a baby. And she's a parent. How many persons have we described? 5? 6? I didn't count. It doesn't matter. The point is made. Well, in the Christ, there's three persons. And they are Messiah, Savior, and Redeemer. Now, the Messiah is, people think, here's this guy that's going to come down out of the sky. No. See, because the Messiah is the deliverer of a message. Everybody's a Messiah. Everybody's selling some kind of snake oil. Everybody's trying to persuade you of one thing or another. A very popular form of that is propaganda, advertising. And don't forget those confidence games like the bridge back east. But the message here is that evil is not bad. Just don't fall for it. But also there's a good side to it because you recognize truth by its appearance as well. So you say, well, if I hold the ball out here, and I'm in Texas, y'all, I'll transport. If I hold the ball over here and I hold it and I let it go, and it bounces off the floor, and I say, gravity. And I go to Australia and I hold the ball. Well, gravity works the same way. Gravity works the same way everywhere in the world. And if you're a dieter, then you start watching your intake and get a little exercise and watch what you eat. And you get on the scale and you can see that you're losing weight. That makes you feel better. So there are appearances, good appearances, and other misleading ones. And So it's very easy to be deceived by reality. Just don't fall for it. Remember the old saying, can't cheat an honest man. So, all I can say about that is, if my message quickens your spirit, lights up your soul, and raises your consciousness to a higher level, then I'm a good Messiah. But I don't know that. And I'm not looking for it. I'm just hoping for the best, because I really don't know what's going on in your secret place of the Most High. And even in Revelation, the Christ figure is seen on his white horse, and his name is stitched in his thighs. And I know you will join me in hoping that he's wearing pants, because otherwise getting the name stitched into your thighs could be pretty painful. But nobody can read it. Nobody knows. Nobody knows who he is. See, you do your alms in secret, and the Father who sees in secret rewards you openly. See, all this is going to start making sense in a little bit right now. So, suffice to say, by your works shall you be known. Make your communication aye, aye, and nay, nay. And remember the words of a man who lived the Christ existence, a French monk of the 17th century. Brother Lawrence, you want to read an inspiring guy, read the Practice of the Presence of God. Oh, and he did everything for the love of God. And that meant when you do something right, boy, you feel good. And then you help somebody. It makes you feel good. It's not like you're trying to pretend. It's there. I remember one time I spent an hour and a half, and I was trying to help a guy find his way. He was from a foreign country. He was an immigrant. His language wasn't so good, and the bus driver dropped him off at the same place, and all he knew was that the place he was looking for was near a church. And we went around about 8 or 9 churches before we found the right one. And this was in the middle of August, when the temperature outside was 95 to 100 degrees. And we found it. And I stuck with it, and we found the house he was looking for. Oddly enough, he didn't mention the person's name. I could have taken him right there because I knew the people. And after an hour and a half slogging around the streets in this middle August hot weather, when he got the right house, he knocked on the door, and he was so happy. And so was I. I lived on that glow for about a day. I don't think my feet touched the ground. But how often I forget that. It's nice to be reminded of it. Now the next is Savior. Now, you're going to have to agree that it's a lot easier to be a Savior if you know who you're saving and what you're saving them from. Now, the American Indians had a saying, and they said, in your soul, every day, there are 2 dogs fighting. One is faith, and the other one is fear. And the one that wins every day is the one you feed. So we have a split personality. It's called a tragicomic nature. We're kind of godlike in one respect and animal-like in another. You know, look at what's been going on in Ferguson the past couple of days. People acting like animals, angry, hostile, destructive. Well, So we all have that, and this is why we're supposed to work our way up the scale toward the heaven part of purgatory. And if you want a lesson in what that means, a spiritual lesson, go to your friendly neighborhood garage and get the automobile mechanic to show you how he purchased a wheel bearing from an automobile. I'll tell you. See, it's a bevel roller bearing. Most of the time, yeah, it's good. No, it's slanted. And rolling around like that, it picks up dirt, grease, grime. It's terrible. So he takes the wheel off, takes the bearing off, and he takes a clean lump of grease and he puts it in one hand, and then he takes that bearing and he starts pushing it into the clean grease and turning it so he gets all sides of it. And what happens is the clean grease pushes out the old grungy, ugly, gritty grease, the black stuff. So that's what we do every day. And the reason is because I want to be a savior. What do I mean by that? Okay. Now suppose I say, well, would you like me to be your best friend? And you say, well, yes. And then I say, do you really want me to be your friend, or do you want me to just act like it? Oh, no, I want you to be a... I've done this. This all has been road tested, field tested. So, what's the answers I'm giving you now are the ones I always get. Yeah, I would like you to be my real friend. Don't just act like it. Well, but suppose I do something that makes you very, very angry. Well, since you're the one that's angry, not me, couldn't we say that you're suffering from an assault of your own lower nature? I think so. I think so, yes. But on the other hand, if I treat you with the same love and kindness, courtesy, respect, dignity, and charity that I would have you treat me, am I not saving you from an assault of your own lower nature? Getting the idea? Yes, I hope so. And now, Redeemer. And this is, I ask a question and nobody gets the answer right. Well, this is another one of those things. Because I ask my audience, my auditor, the guy that's listening to me, or the small group that's listening to me, I said, wait a minute. Where do the greatest number of redemptions take place on any given day? Oh, the cathedral, the Vatican, blah, blah. Give me a break. Give me a break. The greatest number of redemptions to take place on any given day. Pawn shops. No? Because, you know, pawn shop, this is where you have something to value in bondage against a payment. And when you pay it, and then, you know, pay the traffic, then you have redeemed the item, the goods, right? Yeah. Okay, now, so all we have to determine now is what is the dollar value of a soul? I don't think there is one. Have you ever met anyone whose soul is in bondage? Someone you love, who maybe even somebody you just is just an acquaintance, well, you spend time with them. You might say, gee, you know, I'm not sure I really know what's going on with you, but I don't like to see you this way. You're really hurting, and look, I'm your friend, and I care, and I'll stay with you if you need me, if you want me to. If you want to talk, I'll listen. If you want to listen, I'll talk. If you want to hold your hand, but I just want to let you know that I care, and I love you. And then the magic happens. They start talking. And they understand, and then they discover the magic. That you take these thoughts that are swimming around in this doomsday machine, and you put them into words, they lose their power. And you might try to cheer people up. Cheer them up while you're doing that. And gradually, you watch them and listen. And they kind of start coming around to the solution. The truth. Because it takes a little while for the lights to come on. But finally, the crisis passes. And they say, well, thank you for being my friend. I'm going to be all right now. And thank you. I'm so grateful for you. And they pick up their bed. And they go away. Question. Isn't that bringing people back to life? You bet it is. And if you haven't sat with an afflicted friend and watched the magic happen, you haven't lived. Now, well, all right, where are you getting all this stuff? I'm looking in the Bible. I don't see any of this. Well, you're looking in the wrong place, you see. It's a gospel. And well, it's the gospel according to Walt Disney. And now, maybe I think there's someone out there in Nebraska who's watching this on YouTube, and I think his name is Toby, and he's talking to his wife, Cherie. And see, Cherie? I told you he's nuts. Well, anyway, so, gospel according to Walt Disney. Well, it's the old reality again, you know. I'm not being entirely disingenuous with you. All right. It's not the gospel according to Walt Disney. There's no such thing. Had you going there for a while, though, didn't it? Well, actually, it's the gospel according to Carlo Lorenzoni. Didn't that does that clear things up for you? Oh, well, you don't know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you don't know what I'm talking about. But I'll give you a clue. See, because Walt Disney made a feature-length motion picture of the gospel according to Carlo Lorenzoni. But people don't know that. A lot of people, most people don't know that. But I'll give you a clue as to what I'm talking about. Ready? Pinocchio. You didn't know that? Well, no. If you see it, think about it. He's a marionette, a puppet, that is created from the things of the earth by his loving father. And he has no strings, because it symbolizes free will. And he has a cricket, old Jiminy, that is his conscience and tries to tell him the right thing to do, the right way to go, to get through life without too much damage. And then you have the fairy godmother, who is really his protector. And she's his guardian angel. We have a lot of guardian angels. They're people that help you along the way. And sometimes they're perfect strangers. But they come along right when you need them, and they give you what you need to go on. When you think there's no way you can go on. And believe me, I've been there too. All right. So if you're familiar with the story, well, it goes off, Pinocchio that is, goes off with Lampwick, remember? And he grows big donkey ears and brays like a jackass. And then he takes up with the fox and the badger. Hi, diddly dee, an actor's life for me. And they go off there, and he lies. And every time he lies, his nose gets bigger. And finally, he comes to grief, shipwrecked in the belly of a whale. And he's going about as far down as you can go, and he prays he just wants to go home. And the next thing you know, he ends up in his little bed. And he dies, only to reawaken as what he always wanted to be, a real boy, a true son of his father. I hope that this has come to you as good news. Kind of spells things out, you know, and don't be waiting for this stupid Antichrist. Because, well, beginning after World War II, we were exposed for about 40 years, about 45 years, to an elaborate theatrical production And it was called the Cold War. Well, it was just an excuse to spend a lot of money on military hardware. And it broke both sides, by the way. And, but of course, I went to one of the last shows at the old Madison Square Garden, and it was the Moscow Circus. And the Bolshoi Ballet was touring the country, and Nijinsky and some of the others, Pavlova. And there was a movie called Waterloo. You may have seen it. And it starred Christopher Plummer, Rod Steiger, Dan O'Herlihy, and a bunch of people there, And it was a great extravaganza about the Battle of Waterloo. And you know where all the extras came from? Those guys in the soldier suits that were running around, you know who they were? Soviet Army. Isn't that funny? But we were anti-communists. That means that you look at your heart. If you're not communist, well, then you're anti-communist. Sin is turning away from your deity, your God. And if your God is inside you, the Father in me that does the work, well, all I have to do to sin is to place undue importance on something out there. To look out in the Mother Earth. M-A-T-E-R-I-A-L. Instead of looking inward to my true source of strength. So, I'm going to come up with part 2 to round out the explanation. But for now, that is the good news. And I hope you regard it as good news. And it was my pleasure to bring it to you. But on the other hand, there's some not so good news that I have to tell you about. It's the truth, and if you heard and understood and accepted this message, then you have no excuse from here on out. Love you. Hope you have the best day ever, because I'm gonna. Take care of yourself. And come back for part 2. Because that will only expand the topic further. But for now, so long.